Chapter 7, Test B with you, going through each problem and its step-by-step process. 2 25ths plus 1 50th plus 3 fifths equals what? Now, your first step is you have to make sure that when you're adding or subtracting fractions, that they all have the same common denominator. So, Singapore Math in this test gives you at least one of the things that you'll need. And that here is the denominator. You know that the common denominator can't be 5. You know that it can't be 25 because you can't simplify 1/50th down. So you know that the common denominator has to be 50 because 5 goes into 50 and 25 goes into 50. So you start by rewriting out your problem with the new information that you know. You know that you'll have to make this number have the same denominator as this number, as the 50. So how do you get that? 2 times 2, because 25 times 2 is 50. And whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. And whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. Now, the 1/50th doesn't need to change. So you can just add that in and stay the same. But the 3/5 does need to change. Now, how do you make a 5 into 50? Well, that's easy. You multiply it by 10. And whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. So you also have to multiply the 3 by 10. And this is your new problem. Now you've rewritten it, and you need to rewrite it again, showing these steps. You have to show all of your work and not skip any steps. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 25 times 2 is 50. The 1/50th didn't need to change. And 3 times 10 is 30. And 5 times 10 is 50. Now you can add these fractions together because they all have the same common denominator. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 30 is 35 50ths. Now you know you have to simplify. You can't just leave it like this because you know that this can be simplified. Now, how does 35 50ths get simplified? Well, you can see that the top and the bottom is divisible by 5. So what you can do is 35 divided by 5 over 50 divided by 5 is 7/10. And when you get down to it, after you simplify, you can see that 7/10 was one of the answers that you were given. Thus, for this problem, your answer is C, 7/10. Our second problem is 13/14 minus 3/7. Now again, you know that your first step when adding or subtracting fractions is that you have to make the common denominator. So you know the common denominator can't be 7 because you can't break 13 down in half to be 7. But what you can do is you can multiply 7 by 2. So you rewrite the problem, and your new problem is 13/14 minus 3 times 2 over 7 times 2. Your new problem. Now, remember, show all of your steps because your teacher wants to give you partial credit. Your teacher wants to support you and help you and give you as many points as possible. But they can only do that if you show all of your work. So rewrite your problem. 3 times 2 is 6. 7 times 2 is 14. Now you know that 13 minus 6 is what? 13 minus 6 is 7. And your bottom denominator is 14. Now, you could just leave it like this, but can 7/14 be simplified? Yes, it can, because 7 is half of 14. So you know that this really equals 1/2, which, as you remember, was one of your answers that you were given in the test. So your answer is B, 1/2. Our next problem is problem number 3. 4/9 plus 4 7/18 equals what? You are again given 4 options. What do we start out with when adding or subtracting fractions? You have to have a common denominator. So, can the common denominator be 9? No. But it can be 18. So you know that you'll need to multiply your 4 by something and your 9 by something to get 18. Now, how many times does 9 goes into 18? Twice. So you know that you'll need to multiply 9 by 2 to get 18. And whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Now add in the rest of your problem. Now, this is your new problem. Remember, you had to show all of your work. So now you'll rewrite the problem with your new information. This will be 8/18 plus 4 7/18 equals what? Now, what do we do from here? You have to add them up now because there's a common denominator. This is 4 and 15/18. And you know that this can be simplified down because this isn't one of the answers that you were given. So, 4 and 15/18. Now, what is a common number that can go into both 18 and 15? 3. So you'll know that you can divide it by 3 to simplify, which will then get you 4 and 5/6. And look, that's one of your answers. So your answer is D, 4 and 5/6. Problem number 4. 5 3/4 plus 1 3/16 plus 2 1/8 equals what? You know you need a common denominator. You know that denominator isn't 4, and you know it isn't 8. But you know it's 16 because 8 and 4 both go into 16. So rewrite your problem, show your work, don't skip any steps. How many times does 4 go into 16? 4 times, because 4 times 4 is 16. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. Leave 3 and 1 and 3/16 the same, because you already have your common denominator. How many times does 8 go into 16? 2 times, because 2 times 8 is 16, and whatever you do to the top, do to the bottom. Show your work, don't skip any steps. Bring down your numbers with your new fractions. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. Plus 1 and 3/16 plus 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Now you can add them up. Add up your whole numbers. Don't leave them off. Make sure they're in every step. 5 plus 1 plus 2 is 8. 12 plus 3 is 15. Plus 2 is 17. So you have 17/16. Now, you have to simplify. Is 8 and 17/16 your answer? No. What is this really? How many times does 16 go into 17? 1. You know that 16/16 is one whole number. So this is really 9 and 1/16, because when you divide, you have one remainder. And 9 and 1/16 was one of your choice answers. So your final answer is 9 and 1/16. I know the blue might be a little bit hard to see, but we'll do the rest in black. Your problem is 3 and 7/12 minus 2 and 5/6 equals what? You have 4 choice answers. Now the first thing we do is make sure that there's a common denominator before subtracting the fractions. Is 6 the common denominator? No. But can 6 go into 12? Yes, it can. So you know that your new problem is 3 and 7/12 minus 2 and 5/6. But you have to multiply them out to get the common denominator. Now, how many times does 6 go into 12? 2 times. I just told you. And whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. This is your new problem. Now, show all of your work and don't skip any steps. And so we'll rewrite the problem as 3 and 7/12 minus 2 and 10/12. Now, can you subtract 10 from 7? No. So, what do you have to do? You have to expand the problem. Now, you know what's the same as 3 but if you add in a fraction but keeping the same denominator, is 3 and 1/2, is 2 and 1/2 the same? No, you're missing a half. Is 2 and 5/6 the same? No. And you have to have the common denominator. So what's really the same as 3? 2 and 12/12 is the same as 3. So, bring down your 3, and it will be 2 and 12/12 plus 7/12, because this is really all just this one number, but expounded, so you can subtract numbers from it. minus your 2 and 10/12. Now that's easy. Add these two numbers up and you get 2 and 19/12 minus 2 and 10/12. Now that's an easy problem that you can do. Your answer is just 9/12. Now, do we leave it like 9/12? No, because we have to simplify. And 9/12 isn't one of our answers. What's a common denominator between 9 and 12? Does 3 go into 9 and 12? It does. So you would divide this by 3, which would give you 3/4. And that's one of our choice answers. The answer is A, 3/4. All right, your next problem is 5 1/5 minus 1 2/5. Can 2 be subtracted from 1? No, it can't. But what is this 5 really? Isn't 5 really 4 5/5? So here you have 4 5/5 plus this 1/5 minus this 1 2/5. Because you have a common denominator, but you can't subtract this from that, so you have to make this 5 into this number, which is really just 5. Now you can add these up. 4 5/5 plus 1/5 is 4 6/5 minus 1 2/5 equals what? 3 4/5, which is your final answer. Your next problem is problem number 7. 1/2 plus 2 2/4 is 1 3/8. You can look at this and know that you have to put them with a common denominator. So the first thing we'll do is that. How many times does 2 go into 8? 4 times. What you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. How many times does 4 go into 8? 2 times, because 2 times 4 is 8. What you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. And we can leave this 1 3/8 the same, because we know that 8 is our common denominator, because both 2 and 4 go into 8. Now, show your work. Don't skip any steps. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 1 3/8 equals what? So, add up your fractions. You already know that your whole number can move over and there's no other whole numbers. So this is 1. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So know that your answer here is 1 11/8. But we have to simplify. You can't just leave it as 1 11/8. How many times does 8 go into 11? 1 time, with a remainder of 3, because 11 minus 8 is 3. So, this is really 1 8/8 plus 3/8. And 1 8/8 really equals 2. So your final answer is 2 3/8. Number 8. 6 1/16 minus 7/8. You know you have to put it with common denominators. So you know your common denominator isn't 8, so it has to be 16. So you can bring this down. 6 and 1/16 minus this. How many times does 8 go into 16? 2 times. What you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. Show your work. Don't skip any steps. Bring this down. 6 and 1/16 minus 7 times 2 is 14. 8 times 2 is 16. Now, can you subtract 14/16 from 1/16? No. So, you'll have to do what we have done in the other problems and make this fraction bigger. What's the same as 6? 5 and 16/16. So, this number becomes 5 and 16/16 plus 1/16 minus 14/16 equals what? Okay. 5 and 16/16 plus 1/16 is 17. 5 and 17/16 minus 1/16 minus 14/16, not minus 1/16. So this is your new problem. What is 17 minus 14? That's 3. So your answer is 5 and 3/16. And that can't be simplified anymore. So your final answer is 5 and 3/16. Problem number 9. You're almost there. 10/9 minus 1/3. The first thing you have to do is make a common denominator. Common denominator can't be 3, so it's 9 because 3 goes into 9. So rewrite your problem. 10/9 minus, how many times does 3 go into 9? 3 times, because 3 times 3 is 9. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Rewrite your fraction as your new problem. 10/9 minus 3/9. And what's 10 minus 3? 7. 7/9. And this can't be simplified anymore. So your answer is 7/9. Problem number 10 says, Holly bought 1 1/5 pounds of yellow potatoes and 2 7/10 pounds of red potatoes. How many pounds of potatoes did she buy all together? So you know when it says all together that it's an addition, so a plus problem. So you'll add 1 1/5 plus 2 7/10 to get how many potatoes all together. Now, first thing you do still, even though it's a word problem, is find a common denominator. So, is the common denominator 5? No. You know it has to be 10. So, how many times does 5 go into 10? Twice. So, this is your new problem. If I can draw with the dry erase marker. Now, don't skip steps. Show your work. So bring this down and write out your new problem. 1 times 2 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 2 7/10. Now you can easily add up these two numbers. 1 plus 2 is 3. And 2 plus 7 is 9. And that's your answer. But don't forget, always put your units. So it's not just 3 9/10, because 3 9/10 of what? What are you talking about? Are you talking about cats? Are you talking about dogs? Are you talking about dry erase markers? Are you talking about video games or how many shoes you have? No, you're talking about pounds of potatoes. So, don't forget to put your units. It's very important. Problem 11 says, Justin spent 5/8 of an hour writing in his scrapbook. He spent 1/2 an hour drawing in his scrapbook. How much longer did he spend writing than drawing in his scrapbook? Express your answer as a fraction of an hour. Now, this one has a lot of words, and sometimes it can be hard to know what the question's really asking. But it's asking how much longer than did he spend writing than drawing. So you know you need to figure out what's the difference between the two numbers. You know automatically that one is bigger because 5/8 is bigger than 1/2. So what you have to do is 5/8 of an hour writing minus 1/2 of an hour drawing. So your problem is 5/8 minus 1/2 equals what? You know you have to find the common denominator because right now 8 and 2 aren't the same number. So how many times does 2 go into 8? 4 times, because 2 times 4 is 8. Show your work. Don't skip any steps. So bring down the numbers. 5/8 minus 4 times 1 is 4. 2 times 8 is 8. What's 5 minus 4? 1/8. So you know your answer is 1/8. But again, it's not just 1/8. The problem said, express your answer as a fraction of an hour. So it's 1/8 of an hour. Number 12. Hannah had a full can of paint. She used 2/3 of it to paint a rocking chair and 2/9 of it to paint a bird feeder. What fraction of the can of paint does she have left? So if you start with a full something and you use some of it, do you have 2 full somethings now? No. You know that if you start with a full can of paint and you pour some of it out or you use some of it to paint something, you have less paint than you started with. So that means it's a minus problem. So 1 full can of paint minus 2/3 for the chair minus 2/9 for the feeder means she has how much paint left? So we still have to find a common denominator. What is 1 whole something? If we know that the common denominator has to be 9 because it can't be 3 and 3 goes into 9 and so the common denominator is 9. What's 1? It's 9/9 minus 2/3. But we have to make this the common denominator of 2. So how many times does 3 go into 9? 3 times, because 3 times 3 is 9. Minus 2/9 equals what? Simplify your problem. So 9/9 minus 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. Minus 2/9 equals what? 9 minus 6 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. So your answer is 1/9 of the can is left. 1/9 of the can is left. So if you start with a full can, and by the end of it you have 1/9 left, how many ninths of the can did you use? You used 8/9 of the can of paint. The last problem is number 13. It says Eli bought 3 1/6 meters of ribbon, and Kona bought 5/12 meters of ribbon less than Eli. How many meters of ribbon did they buy all together? So we know that Eli bought 3 1/6 meters, and Kona bought 5/12 meters less than Eli did. So we know to start, we have to figure out how much Kona bought. So to do that, we have to start with finding a common denominator. We know that the common denominator between 6 and 12 is 12. So this will be 3. How many times does 6 go into 12? 2 times. So this will be 6 times 2, and 1 times 2. Minus 5/12, that stays the same because it still has the right common denominator. Bring down your numbers, and this is equal to 3 2/12 because 6 times 2 is 12, and 2 times 1 is 2. Again, minus 5/12. But you can't minus 5 from 2, so what we have to do is translate our whole number into a fractional number. So this will be 2 12/12, which is the same thing as 3, and add 2/12 from here, minus 5/12. Now, 2 plus 12 is 14, minus 5 is 9, so this is equal to 2 9/12. So, Kona bought 2 9/12 meters of ribbon. Now, to find how much they bought all together, we need to add how much Kona bought with how much Eli bought. So that will be 3 1/6 plus 2 9/12 equals how much they bought all together. Again, you have to find the common denominator between 6 and 12, which is 12, and we know that we can turn 3 1/6 into 3 2/12, just like we did over here earlier. So this will be 3 2/12 plus 2 9/12, which is equal to 5 11/12. So all together, they bought 5 11/12 meters of ribbon. And that's your final answer. That is the end of your Singapore Chapter 7 Test B. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.